If you want to change your life, don't start by wishing for better luck. Start by becoming better educated. Because the difference between where you are and where you want to be is not time, not luck, and not circumstances. It is what you know, what you're learning, and what you're becoming. Life doesn't reward intention, it rewards preparation. And preparation begins with education. Not just in school, not just in books, but in daily self-development. The truth is simple and uncomfortable. If you are not growing, you are shrinking. If you are not learning, you are falling behind. The world does not pause while you figure things out. It keeps moving. That's why the most powerful habit you can build is this one: discipline. Educate yourself daily. Most people believe their future will be decided by circumstances, by the economy, by education they received years ago, by luck, or by who they know. But the truth is far simpler and far more demanding. Your future is decided by what you choose to learn after no one is forcing you anymore. Formal education can introduce you to possibilities, but self-education determines how far those possibilities go. Once school ends, the responsibility shifts. From that moment on, whatever you become is largely self-directed. If you continue to learn, you continue to grow. If you stop learning, life doesn't stop. It passes you by. Self-education is powerful because it is voluntary. No grades, no exams, no teacher standing over you. It reveals character. When a person reads, studies, listens, and improves without being forced, they are shaping their own destiny. This is where true progress begins. The world rewards value, and value comes from what you know, how you think, and how well you apply your understanding. You don't get paid for your time. You get paid for the value you bring to the marketplace. And that value is built quietly, daily, through personal learning. Look closely at successful people, and you'll notice something they all have in common. They never stopped being students. They study their craft, their industry, human behavior, communication, and finances. Not because someone told them to, but because they understood that growth is a personal responsibility. The moment you hand that responsibility to someone else, you limit your future to their vision. When you take it back, you expand what's possible. Your level of income, influence, and confidence rarely rises above your level of personal development. You may work harder, longer and faster, but if your thinking stays the same, your results will too. Self-education upgrades your thinking. It changes how you evaluate situations, how you make decisions, and how you respond under pressure. A better, informed mind produces better answers, and better answers create better outcomes. Many people say they want success, but they don't invest in learning. They want rewards without preparation. That's like hoping to harvest without planting. Self-education is the planting season of life. Every book you read, every idea you study, every lesson you learn is a seed. Some seeds sprout quickly, others take time, but none of them are wasted. Over time, they compound into wisdom, confidence, and opportunity. Self-education also protects you. It protects you from being misled, from making emotional decisions, from repeating the same mistakes year after year. When you understand how money works, you stop being afraid of it. When you understand how people think, you stop being surprised by behavior. When you understand discipline, you stop relying on motivation. Knowledge removes fear because fear is usually born from ignorance. Another powerful aspect of self-education is adaptability. The world is changing fast. Skills become outdated. Industries shift. Opportunities move. Those who rely only on what they learned years ago struggle, while those who keep learning stay relevant. Self-education allows you to adjust instead of panic, to pivot instead of quit. It gives you options, and options are freedom. What makes self-education truly valuable is that it shapes identity. You don't just learn facts, you become a different person. Your language improves. Your standards rise. Your tolerance for excuses decreases. You begin to expect more from yourself because you know more. And when you expect more, you demand more effort, more discipline, and more integrity from your actions. This is why self-education determines your future. Not tomorrow, not suddenly, but steadily and inevitably. The person you will be in 5 years is already being shaped by what you choose to learn today. Every day you either add to your future or take from it. And the smallest daily learning habit, practiced consistently, can change the entire direction of your life. Most people wait for the right feeling before they take the right action. They wait for motivation to show up, for inspiration to strike, for the mood to be perfect. But growth does not respond to emotion. It responds to discipline. Daily learning is not about excitement. It's about commitment. The mistake many people make is believing that education should feel inspiring every day. In reality, the days that shape your future are often ordinary, quiet, and repetitive. That is where daily learning wins and occasional motivation fails. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes with mood, weather, success, and stress. Discipline, on the other hand, stays. When learning becomes a daily habit rather than an emotional decision, progress becomes inevitable. You don't ask yourself whether you feel like learning today. You simply do what you decided long ago was necessary. 15 or 20 minutes of focused learning every day may not feel dramatic, but it creates dramatic results over time. Small disciplines, practiced consistently, always outperform intense efforts practiced occasionally. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They want overnight transformation, but life is built on accumulation. Daily learning compounds. One idea builds on another. One insight sharpens the next decision. Over time, what once felt like effort becomes identity. You don't just learn, you become a learner. And once that identity is formed, improvement becomes natural. Waiting for motivation also creates inconsistency. Some days you learn, some days you don't. Some weeks you're excited, other weeks you disappear. Inconsistency weakens results and confidence. When you rely on daily learning instead, you build trust with yourself. You begin to believe in your ability to follow through. That self-trust is priceless. It strengthens discipline in every area of life, not just learning. Another danger of relying on motivation is that it ties growth to external circumstances. If life is stressful, learning stops. If things are going well, learning slows. But progress requires stability, not emotional swings. Daily learning creates a steady rhythm, regardless of what's happening around you. Whether life is good or difficult, you continue to grow. And that growth becomes your advantage during hard times. Daily learning also removes overwhelm. People avoid education because they think it requires hours of effort. But learning in small, daily portions makes growth manageable. A few pages of reading, a short lesson, a thoughtful reflection. These small actions fit into real life. And because they are small, they are sustainable. Sustainability is the secret to long-term success. When learning becomes daily, it sharpens your awareness. You begin to notice opportunities others miss. Conversations become richer. Decisions become clearer. You're not smarter overnight, but you are more prepared. Preparation creates confidence, and confidence improves action. That is how daily learning quietly transforms results. There is also something powerful about starting the day with learning. It sets the tone. Instead of reacting to the world, you prepare for it. You feed your mind before the world feeds you noise. Over time, this habit changes how you think under pressure. You respond thoughtfully instead of emotionally. You act intentionally instead of impulsively. Occasional motivation may make you feel good, but daily learning makes you effective. One creates excitement, the other creates progress. Life rewards progress. The people who rise are not the most motivated. They are the most consistent. They show up when it's boring. They learn when it's inconvenient. And because of that, they are ready when opportunity appears. This is why daily learning beats occasional motivation. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline is a resident. And the future belongs to those who choose discipline. One small learning decision at a time. Most people think learning is expensive. They look at the price of books, courses, time, and effort and decide to postpone growth. But what they fail to calculate is the far greater cost of not knowing. Ignorance sends a bill sooner or later, and it always charges interest. Poor decisions, missed opportunities, wasted years, broken relationships, financial stress. These are not accidents. They are often the price paid for what someone never learned. Every area of life punishes ignorance. If you don't understand money, you struggle with it. If you don't understand health, your body pays the price. If you don't understand people, relationships become painful. Life is not cruel, it is fair. It simply responds to your level of understanding. Education is not an expense, it is protection. It protects you from repeating the same mistakes and wondering why nothing changes. Many people say they can't afford to invest in learning, but they somehow afford the consequences of poor choices. They afford stress, regret, and limitation. They afford living below their potential. The truth is, learning costs far less than failure. A book is cheaper than a bad decision. A mentor is cheaper than a decade of confusion. A lesson learned early can save years of struggle later. Ignorance also limits vision. When you don't know what's possible, you settle for what's familiar. You accept conditions you could change simply because you don't know another way exists. Education expands options. It introduces new ideas, strategies, and perspectives. Once you know better, you can do better. But until then, you repeat yesterday while hoping for a different tomorrow. Another hidden cost of ignorance is emotional. Not knowing creates fear. People fear money because they don't understand it. They fear change because they don't know how to adapt. They fear failure because they don't know how to recover. Education replaces fear with clarity. When you understand how something works, it loses its power over you. Knowledge brings calm, and calm leads to better decisions. Ignorance also keeps people dependent. When you don't know, you rely on others to think for you, decide for you, and guide your life. That dependence limits freedom. Education gives independence. It allows you to question, evaluate, and choose for yourself. The more you know, the less you are controlled by opinions, trends, and pressure. One of the greatest costs of ignorance is wasted time. Time is the one resource you can't replace. Every year spent making the same mistakes is a year you don't get back. Learning shortens the path. It allows you to stand on the shoulders of those who have already figured things out. Why struggle for 10 years when you can learn in 10 hours from someone who has already paid the price? Some people avoid learning because it challenges their beliefs. Education forces growth, and growth can be uncomfortable. But staying the same is far more uncomfortable in the long run. Life will either teach you through learning or through pain. One is far cheaper than the other. When people finally realize the cost of ignorance, they often say, "I wish I had known this earlier." That regret is the receipt. The bill eventually arrives. The wise person chooses to pay in advance, through reading, listening, studying, and learning daily. Ignorance doesn't just affect today, it shapes tomorrow. The decisions you make now are building your future. If those decisions are based on limited understanding, the future will reflect that limitation. Education widens the path, it increases opportunity, it improves results. This is why learning is not optional. It is not a luxury, it is a responsibility. Because everything you don't know will eventually cost you something. And often, it costs far more than learning ever would. You cannot rise in life beyond the level of your thinking. Your results are not random. They are the natural outcome of how you see the world, how you interpret situations, and how you make decisions. When people struggle, it is rarely because they lack effort. More often, they lack perspective. Education expands thinking, and expanded thinking creates better choices. The moment your mind grows, your life gains new options. Limited thinking produces limited results. When you don't know what's possible, you assume what's familiar is all there is. Education breaks that mental ceiling. It introduces new ideas, better strategies, and different ways of approaching problems. Suddenly, what once felt impossible becomes manageable. What once felt confusing becomes clear. Learning doesn't change your circumstances immediately. It changes how you respond to them. And that response is everything. When your thinking improves, your judgment improves. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding intelligently. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What can I learn from this?" That shift alone can change the direction of a life. Educated thinking turns problems into lessons and challenges into training grounds. Many people repeat the same year over and over, calling it experience. They don't grow because their thinking doesn't grow. Education interrupts that cycle. It forces reflection. It introduces new questions. And better questions lead to better answers. You cannot solve a new problem with old thinking. The world evolves, and your mind must evolve with it. Expanded thinking also improves decision-making speed. When you understand more, you hesitate less. You recognize patterns. You see consequences before they happen. That clarity saves time, energy, and regret. Poor decisions often come from incomplete information. Education fills those gaps and sharpens foresight. Another powerful effect of learning is improved vision. Education allows you to see further into the future. You begin to understand cause and effect. You see how today's actions shape tomorrow's outcomes. That awareness changes behavior. When you see clearly, you act responsibly. When you act responsibly, results improve naturally. Education also helps you interpret reality accurately. Many people misjudge situations because they don't understand context. They blame others, the economy, or luck because they lack insight. Learning brings understanding, and understanding brings peace. You stop fighting reality and start working with it. That alignment creates momentum. As thinking expands, standards rise. You stop accepting poor results because you know better results are possible. You become less tolerant of excuses, especially your own. Education raises expectations, and higher expectations demand higher performance. This is how growth becomes permanent. Another important shift happens internally. As your thinking improves, your self-image improves. You begin to see yourself as capable, adaptable, and responsible. That identity affects every action you take. You walk differently. You speak differently. You choose differently. The external world responds to the internal upgrade. Education does not make life easier. It makes you stronger. It doesn't remove challenges, it prepares you for them. When thinking is shallow, challenges feel overwhelming. When thinking is deep, challenges feel manageable. That difference determines success. Most breakthroughs are not breakthroughs at all. They are the result of accumulated understanding. A new idea, combined with an old effort, creates a new result. Learning provides the missing link between effort and reward. When thinking expands, life expands with it. Opportunities increase, choices improve, results multiply. And it all begins with the decision to learn, to stretch the mind beyond its current limits, and allow education to shape a better vision for life. True confidence is not loud, aggressive, or attention-seeking. It doesn't need validation or applause. Real confidence is quiet, steady, and calm, and it is built on understanding. When you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, fear loses its grip. Education is what creates that inner stability. It prepares you not just for success, but for pressure, uncertainty, and change. Most anxiety comes from not knowing. People panic because they don't understand the situation, the process, or their own ability to respond. When knowledge is missing, imagination fills the gap, and imagination usually creates fear. Education replaces fear with clarity. The more you learn, the more predictable life becomes. Not easier, but clearer. And clarity brings calm. When challenges arise, educated people respond differently. They don't panic immediately. They pause, assess, and adjust. They understand that problems are part of the process, not signs of failure. This adaptability is one of the greatest advantages education provides. Life rarely goes according to plan, but an educated mind can create a new plan quickly. Instead of feeling stuck, you look for options. Instead of quitting, you pivot. Confidence built on education is durable. It doesn't collapse when things go wrong. Confidence based on hype fades under pressure. But confidence based on understanding grows stronger with experience. When you've studied, practiced, and prepared, setbacks don't destroy you, they teach you. You trust yourself because you've invested in yourself. Education also helps you separate emotion from action. Under stress, most people react emotionally. They say the wrong thing, make rushed decisions, or give up too early. Learning trains the mind to slow down. It teaches cause and effect. It gives you frameworks for thinking instead of reacting. That mental control is a powerful form of confidence. Another benefit of learning is resilience. When you understand that failure is feedback, not a verdict, you recover faster. Education shows you that mistakes are part of mastery. You stop taking setbacks personally and start taking them seriously. This shift allows you to keep moving forward without losing belief in yourself. Adaptability becomes essential in a changing world. Skills expire, industries evolve, circumstances shift. Those who stop learning struggle because they try to survive with outdated knowledge. Educated individuals stay flexible. They update their thinking. They acquire new skills. They remain useful. And usefulness creates confidence. Learning also improves communication. When you understand concepts deeply, you explain them simply. You listen better. You argue less. You influence more. That ability to communicate calmly and clearly under pressure is a direct result of education. It allows you to navigate difficult conversations and complex situations without losing control. Confidence rooted in knowledge also reduces comparison. When you know your strengths and understand your path, you don't need to compete with everyone. You focus on growth instead of validation. Education gives you direction, and direction eliminates insecurity. Another important shift happens in decision-making. Educated minds make fewer impulsive choices. They weigh consequences. They consider long-term impact. That reduces regret, and less regret strengthens self-trust. When you trust your judgment, confidence becomes natural. Adaptability and confidence together create leadership. People follow those who remain calm under pressure and flexible under change. Education prepares you for that role. Even if you never seek the title, it shapes character quietly, over time. This is why learning is more than acquiring information. It is building inner strength. It is preparing for uncertainty. It is developing confidence that doesn't depend on circumstances. And in a world that constantly changes, the ability to adapt calmly may be the most valuable skill of all. Information alone has never changed a life. Libraries are full of knowledge, yet most people remain stuck, not because they lack access to information, but because they lack application. Learning becomes powerful only when it moves from the mind into action. Until then, it is entertainment. The true value of education is revealed in what you do with what you know. Many people confuse consuming information with growing. They read books, watch videos, and attend seminars, yet nothing changes. Why? Because learning without action creates illusion. It makes you feel productive without producing results. Growth requires movement. Even imperfect action is more valuable than perfect understanding with no execution. Application turns theory into experience. The moment you apply an idea, it becomes real. You discover what works, what doesn't, and why. That feedback is where learning deepens. Without application, knowledge stays shallow. With application, understanding becomes wisdom. Small actions matter more than big intentions. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You need to apply one idea today. One adjustment in behavior. One improved decision. Consistent application compounds just like learning does. Tiny changes practiced daily lead to massive transformation over time. Action also builds confidence. When you apply what you learn, you prove to yourself that you can change. That self-evidence strengthens belief. Confidence grows from experience, not theory. The more you act, the more capable you feel. The more capable you feel, the more you act. This positive loop accelerates growth. Another powerful benefit of application is clarity. Many people feel confused because they overthink. Action cuts through confusion. It simplifies. When you act, the next step becomes clearer. You don't need all the answers before you begin. You discover answers along the way. Education without execution can also create frustration. People know what to do but don't do it. That gap creates guilt and self-doubt. Application closes that gap. It aligns knowledge with behavior. When your actions match your understanding, inner conflict disappears. Applying what you learn also sharpens discipline. It trains you to move despite resistance. Learning feels easy. Action feels uncomfortable. But discomfort is the price of growth. The disciplined person acts even when it's inconvenient. Over time, that discipline becomes identity. Another mistake people make is waiting for the right time to apply what they've learned. The right time is always now. Conditions are never perfect. Progress requires imperfect action. Those who wait remain stuck. Those who act adapt. Execution also filters information. When you apply ideas, you quickly see what's useful and what's not. This prevents overload. You stop collecting random knowledge and start seeking relevant learning. Purpose replaces distraction. Action transforms learning into results. Results reinforce belief. Belief fuels consistency. Consistency creates mastery. This is the cycle of growth. Break the cycle at action, and everything collapses. Even failure becomes valuable when you apply knowledge. Failure teaches faster than success. But only those who act get that lesson. Those who never apply never fail, but they never succeed either. Application is the bridge between who you are and who you could become. Knowledge shows the path, action walks it. Without action, education remains potential. With action, it becomes power. This is why learning must end in doing. Not someday. Not when it feels comfortable. Now. Because the purpose of education is not to impress. It is to transform.